everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Superintendent's Report. I'm Carol Birdsong, and joining me for the next 30 minutes or so is Williamson County Schools Superintendent Jason Golden. And for this program, we're going to be talking about all the things that families need to know for back to school, because Mr. Golden, school starts in just over a week. We go a half day on Friday, August the 5th.
You know, Carol, you mentioned that folks are going to hear everything they need to know. There's a lot. So I'm not 100% confident we're going to hit every single item, but we're going to hit some key points as your children get ready to go back to school.
You are probably correct, because everything they need to know, they're going to find a lot more out at the school level than the information that we can provide. But how about just a broad overview of all things back to school? We'll do that. Okay, well, first of all, like we said, school begins with a half day, Friday, August 5th, and then the first full day will be the following Monday. Kindergarten students return on August the 15th. So let's talk about what the school year looks like. I feel like it's almost back to a few years ago. There's a lot of excitement. As we record this today on Wednesday, you have just spoken with the secondary new teachers that are coming into the district. Tomorrow you'll speak with elementary and system-wide, and we, quite frankly, are promoting a culture of kindness this year.
Well, thank you for that, Carol. We have been able to speak with our new teachers, and one of the questions I asked the new teachers really for a hand raise was, how many of you are not from Tennessee? How many of you have just moved in? And what we are finding is that our teacher group really reflects our community. As our community grows, we continue to have new teachers who are coming in just as our community does. So we're a magnet for folks coming in for their children's education. Likewise, I am glad that we continue to be attractive to teachers. One of the reasons why is because there is a national teacher shortage. We've talked for many years about our hard to fill positions, the world languages, some of the advanced sciences, special education. Across Middle Tennessee, especially with growth, we're seeing that in so many other areas. So I am so very excited about the commitments our new teachers made to us. We are actually in better shape with staffing for teachers this year at this time, about a week or so before school starts, than we were last year.
Okay, you jumped to what I was going to talk about at the end, so let's go into staffing and hiring. We still do have job vacancies, though. As we always do, that's not necessarily a new thing, but we need, especially special education teacher assistants. We need cafeteria workers. We always need bus drivers. And like you said, some of the more difficult to fill teaching positions are needed. So we would encourage you, if you are interested, go to our website at wcs.edu and click on careers and apply.
Certainly encourage that. I've been having conversations one-on-one with many of, especially our elementary principals. They might be looking for one or two positions, that kind of thing. But we are so excited about where we are right now. Again, we're in good shape for staffing. There might be a spot here or there. Now, if you think district-wide, we have 50 schools. And so district-wide, it's a lot. But at each individual school, our staff has been working over the course of the summer to get prepared for this school year.
That's right. And our Human Resources Department is quite busy right now. So patience is a wonderful thing. And speaking of patience and focusing on a culture of kindness, because we want all of our new employees to feel welcome, to feel loved and appreciated. And remember many years ago in Williamson County Schools, we didn't want to call it an initiative, we didn't want to call it a program, but it was more of a state of mind, a be nice state of mind. And I know that our schools are talking about, let's bring that to the top again and talk about how we can work together, support each other, be kind to one another. At the breakfast with the mayors yesterday, where you and Superintendent Dr. David Snowden from Franklin Special spoke, I believe it was County Mayor Rogers Anderson who brought up that Williamson Medical Center has launched a campaign, Kindness Matters. And so we want to embrace that as well in our schools.
Well, that's right. And what we know, and I think most everybody feels this, is when folks feel stress and they're in a relationship with someone that they don't know very well, kindness has the tendency to fall by the wayside. So what we're looking for is an intentionality of kindness. Like the Williamson Medical Center addressed it because they've been struggling in some of the services they provide, and we are paralleling that. That there needs to be a culture of kindness. I will tell you that that's what our teachers do in their classroom. You can't substitute decency with anything else, and that's a key element of our mission. Now, our vision statement talks about providing a supportive environment where students are challenged to excel in academics, athletics, and the arts, and that supportive environment is key to us. And so we believe that it's important in our entire community for us to support that idea that kindness matters.
And I think part of that too goes back to relationship building, and that is something else that we are encouraging. We want our families to build relationships with their child's teacher or teachers. If you're at the secondary level and you may have more than one, build relationship with the school staff, because you're going to want to reach out to them at some point. And if you have a sick child, or you might need guidance or assistance. So the communication, relationship building is key, I think, to making that successful. And let's talk about the chain of command, for lack of a better term. But there are ways to communicate and build relationship with school staff. Talk about, if a parent has a concern, problem, need to talk to somebody, where do they start?
Well, if it's a concern with what's going on in the classroom, the first person to speak to is your teacher. Have a conversation with your teacher. If it's a question about what's happening administratively at a school, then the first contact may be the principal. And when you mention chain of command, it's kind of that common sense. Go to the person you know who does the work that you want to ask a question about. That's your best first stop. And that's a little bit of common sense, but we do want to encourage that so that those relationships can build. We know from our life experience that there's no substitute for those relationships between our teachers and our students. And while we know that a parent won't spend that much time with a teacher, if you're talking about your child in that classroom, that is the best first place to start.
We've also made some adjustments to communication expectations for our staff this year, allowing them more opportunity. I guess it's a more unified kind of response in maybe a timeline. So we're going to talk about that now. You will hear from your school principals and your teachers, because you have, along with the leadership team, have made the decision that our teachers need some guardrails to protect them in establishing those expectations for communication. So 48 hours is what families need to remember.
So we may speak to the quality and the substance of our teachers' work a little bit later. But what we have talked about is making sure that we communicate early on the front end about how you can expect communications from our teachers. We want to make sure that the important mission-specific time that our teachers have is aimed towards our mission, which is instructional time for our students. Mm-hmm. And so we are asking our teachers to make sure that they communicate their expectations, and we're doing it as well. Our administrators are doing it as well. Our goal is to make sure that there's an email response to you within 48 hours. There are certain emergencies. If something is going on immediately with your child, we are looking for a quicker response. But generally speaking, if you ask a question, we are not asking our teachers to respond on the weekends. We're not asking our teachers to respond in the middle of the night. We expect them to respond during appropriate work time so that we can make sure that the focus that we've done so well in educating your children continues to get that same high quality attention on a daily basis during those work times.
Mm-hmm. And our parents do expect that our teachers should be teaching and not reading email during class time. And so if you do have an emergency, we encourage you to reach out directly to that front office staff, knowing that our teachers will not be reading email during class time. So do keep that in mind. It's a little bit different than how we've operated in the past, but hopefully then all of our 42,000 plus parents will know what to expect, what they can expect regarding communication from the teachers and their principals. Let's dispel a myth. There've just been, there's just so much information out there that's just incorrect, quite frankly. And you said this yesterday. There's a myth out there that we don't want people in our buildings, and that's just frankly not true. Talk about why we love our volunteers and how folks can get involved.
Well, we've talked about kind of a hanger-on from COVID. 2.5 years ago or so, the governor asked all the schools to close a couple of springs ago. And schools across the state closed as a result of that and shifted to remote. It's hard to remember all those painful times, but we went through that process. We noticed that last year there was still some discussion about, schools are closed. We still have had a lot of safety protocols in place, especially for student safety. We do have safety protocols in place this year, but we want families in our buildings. We want volunteers in our buildings. Our mission is instructional time for our students and make sure our students learn just as they've been learning with the high quality instruction we have. But we welcome and invite volunteers in our buildings. There will be times where we have particular programs we want families at. But again, if you're looking to volunteer, we want you. And that was true last year. And when you mentioned myth, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. We want parent volunteers in our buildings. Our PTOs are active. I know that we've had conversations with some of our PTO leaders last year that the volume of folks who were involved and active in the PTOs went down a little bit. I think largely because of COVID, maybe because people got out of the habit of doing good for others in that way by getting active in those activities. So we certainly encourage a renewed interest in our PTOs that provide just unbelievable support to our families.
They certainly do. They certainly do. And what you just talked about, providing that instructional time. So, just for those who don't know how we operate, maybe you're new to the district, we don't want you to pop in, right? Because there may be 20, 25 students in a classroom and the teacher needs to be instructing. So if you do need to meet with the teacher, they'll set up a time with you outside of instructional time.
We have room for volunteers. Certainly schedule that volunteer time. We want to make sure your children and everyone's child is protected. We talked about instructional time a couple of times, and I want to jump, if I may, just a little bit, because I have to reflect on what happened last year with our student performance.
Yes.
In TCAP, which is the standard Tennessee state test, end of year test, we actually received all the data back late this summer. And we did that because those tests are now online. So we have better data earlier than we typically do. And we were first in our TCAP test, grades 3 through 8, which is the grade levels that TCAP test. We were first in English language arts statewide among 147 school districts. We were first in math, we were first in science, and we were first in social studies in all 4 of those categories because of the high quality efforts our teachers have. And we know, because we've been doing this for decades with a focus towards being the best we possibly can be, that growth takes evolution. You can't just sit on what you're doing from year to year and expect to continue to grow your students, because everyone's growing. Tennessee's headed in the right direction. We want to be the leaders in that. And what we learned is that instructional time is even more precious and is going to become more precious day after day. The collaboration time for teachers to work with each other, their planning time, the value of that time is so important that we want to make sure that we take care of teachers and make sure they can focus on that mission.
So I'm just going to say a big shout out, congratulations to our teachers and staff and administrators. Number 1 in all 4 core areas, 3 through 8, quite impressive. And our high school numbers look pretty darn good too. So we'll be sharing more of that information as it becomes available. ACT, AP, all those types of things a little bit later on in the school year, but wonderful work being done.
But I want to emphasize that's not a given. That kind of success is not
No,
a
it is
given.
not.
It takes daily effort, it takes planning, it takes collaboration time with our teachers, and it really takes the support of our parents. That's one of the reasons why we've become so successful, because of the parents, and they make sure that our teachers are taken care of.
We have the right formula here in Williamson County for sure. One of those elements that we are changing for this upcoming school year is the secondary schools have had late start days, and now elementary wants that same opportunity for collaboration with their peers. So you presented to the school board, and the school board has approved 11 early release days, scattered throughout this next school year coming up. Explain the importance of those days, and then there's misinformation out there about that too. So we'll get to that in a minute, but explain the importance of those days.
So a generation ago or so, and maybe some grandparents who are listening may remember this, we actually had an early release once a week for elementary schools, and the buses ran and everybody left the building, teachers stayed and worked. We have refined that after having not done that for a couple of decades.
It's been a minute.
Actually,
yes,
it's been a solid generation. What we learned in taking that next step to grow our students, knowing that we have to continue to stay ahead, is our teachers need time after our student assessments to get together, review those assessments, which by the way are common, what we call common assessments, where students in let's say the fourth grade English classes all take a similar test, or the fourth grade math classes all take a similar test. Their teachers get back together, look at the data from those students, and compare how their students did on particular standards that we're teaching based on the Tennessee standards. And compare, did my students do well on this compared to your students? How did you teach this particular standard compared to me? They really drill down to that detail, and they talk about individual students, about how their students did. That takes time. We've had many of our teachers asking for that additional time. For a long time, our secondary schools, our middle and high schools, have had late start Mondays, and they've been able to do some of that. We set up a structure after a number of months' discussion with our board. We got a good bit of public feedback. We have 11 days built into this calendar, all on Wednesdays, all intentionally set to be soon after an assessment, where schools will release, actually strictly speaking, 112 minutes early, the elementary schools, so that those teachers can get together and look at your child's performance on the test to make sure that your child has mastered particular standards that we're teaching this entire school year. 11 days over the course of the school year. We will release school at that time. Our elementary school buses will run. If you can't pick up your child, or if you don't have a safe spot for your child to go at home because you're at work, then we are keeping the schools open for the students up until that normal release time. So on the bus side of it, we're going to run a load for the students at the time school releases. As those buses finish, we'll run the secondary routes, high and middle, basically on their regular time, give or take depending on traffic and those kinds of things. And then we will run a second load after the secondary schools, basically on the same schedule as a regular structured day for those folks who can't pick up their children. During that 2-hour time, we'll provide that care for those who can't go home. But our teachers will be focused on working together to talk about their students' grasp of the standards. We're taking a shot at this. I'm going to see how this goes for this 11-day period.
Yes.
We expect to talk to the board about how it's going in late fall, the first few days. My hope is that we can have a discussion about the calendar to see how this goes, so that we can find ways to get that extra collaborative time that our teachers need if we're going to continue to stay ahead.
So if an elementary child stays in school, doesn't take the bus home, for that 2 hours, they will be able to read homework club. There won't be field trips. There won't be any organized activities, but they will be supervised by an adult staff member.
That's
in the
correct.
building.
Our
It's
teachers,
not a teacher.
Our goal is for our teachers to be working together, talking about student performance. We'll have care for the children. It's not SAC because SAC will start at the regular time. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, our school-age child care program where you pay a fee for after-school care. Those folks will still show up after that 2-hour period, and they'll continue to provide that. But for those who can't go home, we will provide child care. It's not programming. Because we are actually starting the school day 7 minutes earlier, really on the same schedule that our high schools and middle schools have been on for years. Folks may not have noticed, but for years the high school and middle school schedule actually had 7 minutes each day. And then they would take those 7 minutes, combine them into those those late start Mondays. We're going to do the same thing with early release for our elementary schools on a strategic schedule.
So you lead into my next question statement. Families need to go to our website and check their school start times because all the elementary school start and end times, half day, all that has changed with this change. And your middle and high school possibly could have changed as well. Or if you're new to the district, you just need to go to check those times.
Check your school start time. The elementary schools are 7 minutes different.
And then please go to the website as well under bus routes and zoning and check for the pickup and drop off times based on your child's bus route now. But we know that changes. There are lots of adjustments that are made during the start of the school year to bus routes.
Well, we know, especially the first few weeks, a lot of families are trying to decide, am I going to use the bus on a regular basis? Will I be able to drive my child? So a lot of folks sign up for the bus routes. We base that structure on our bus capacity and who is choosing to use the bus. And so that does evolve over the course of the first few weeks. Kindergarten comes in a couple of weeks later, so that adds additional passengers. So our bus routes are designed and set, but we know that we do have to make adjustments at particular locations based on how many students actually get on the bus. We're not going to run a bus that's overcrowded. The bus has a defined number of students who can ride it, and so we're going to make sure we honor all those safety rules to make sure students are safe. What that means is from time to time we may have to adjust a bus route. Now, Carol, I want to mention, as we sit here today, little more than a week before school starts, we have every bus route covered by a bus driver. We do have
great.
We do have. I'm going to share the extra in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
We do have some first and second loads, especially in those areas with very small geographic zones, because frankly we would like some more drivers where we didn't have to do first and second loads. But with our structure of first and second loads, we have a bus covered. What we don't have is extra drivers. The reality is somebody gets sick every day. And so every day, if somebody's out, we're going to have to do some juggling. We frankly don't have enough bus drivers to purely meet the routes every day and be confident we can, even though we have an assignment. So we're still recruiting bus drivers. That's been a challenge for us. We've had some improvements in past years, but as we continue to grow, those challenges continue.
And I would mention that for families who take advantage of bus service, there will be some changes in the way that you're communicated with this year. And based on feedback from our communication survey last year, we have changed, and you will not be getting phone calls anymore. You will instead get text messages and emails. So we had our families were saying, too many phone calls. So we've made some adjustments, and the folks at the transportation department will now be sending text messages with emails.
We introduced text a couple of years ago from the communications department, and I think it went over really well. People's habits have changed over the course of time, and so we've evolved with that. Texts tend to pop up. I've got my phone set up where my text pops up immediately. My emails don't pop up in the same way. So yeah, we're going to make sure that we send text out for bus routes. But I want you to know that safety for students is our number one And then the schedule of how they get home is going to be driven by our capacity based on who we have staffed on a daily basis.
And transportation does have an app that families can download with information. So we've grown over the years, and we've improved, I think, our transportation service, and so we will continue to improve in all the ways that we possibly can. You talked about safety and security. There are a couple of things that I want to share. We talked about volunteers earlier. You can't just walk into a Williamson County school building and say, "Hey, I'm here to volunteer." Would you explain to our families and community members, because we want community members to volunteer too, explain how the volunteer process works?
So our volunteer process is structured for student safety. And we have a tiered volunteer process, and there's tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 are basically the volunteers who aren't going to be around a child in a school setting. The best example might be somebody who's working a concession stand at a ball game, who might be grilling. They're not going to be alone with a child. That's tier 1. Tier 2 is someone who might have access to private student information. You might be working in the office. You might be helping out with some kind of process where you might have access to what we call personally identifiable student information. That's tier 2. Tier 2, we actually require a confidentiality agreement. That's the same basic confidentiality agreement that our employees sign, that if you learn something about a child, you'll keep it to yourself. Tier 3 is the volunteer who might be in a setting where they might end up one-on-one with a child. Not necessarily that they will, but they might. A good example of that is a field trip.
Trips, right.
Or you're in the building helping out in a classroom.
Maybe you're a reader.
Reading, those kinds of items. We actually do a criminal background check on those volunteers. It's the same criminal background check that we require of our employees. It is the same criminal background check that the state requires of contractors who come onto school campuses. It's that idea of we're going to make sure that no one who has that criminal history is allowed on a school campus. There's just no reason for that. And so that's our process for volunteers. Over time, we have had thousands of high-quality volunteers who've come in with their children, done some great things to help us out while their children are in school here. We have great grandparents who come in and do that help. That's our structure for volunteers.
Thank you. Very, very good. And when the school year starts, get on in there to your school, and they will help walk you through that process, because we want you there. Let's talk about school resource officers, and those deputies, sheriff's deputies, are provided by the Williamson County Sheriff's Office for all of our Williamson County schools.
Well, you and I have talked about that culture of kindness that's really a community-wide effort, that visitors are welcome on our campus. And then we've talked about communication with parents. Those are some three points that we've talked about here. I talked to our administrators in our introductory time together about 3 points for them and for us as leaders. One is that we are going to renew an emphasis on celebrating our teachers and our staff. Second is we are going to increase and grow our collaboration time, and we've talked about that and the instructional value in that. The third focus, where we really close it out, is student safety. And in that, I've talked about two main categories of student safety. One is physical safety, and two is mental health. And you introduced a topic related to physical safety.
Right.
There is no substitute for people when it comes to keeping children safe. You can create a bunch of passive safety measures, but if you don't have the people, you're not doing the best you can. We are fortunate and blessed in this community to have SROs on all our campuses. The Sheriff's Department serves us and Franklin Special School District with those SROs, trained law enforcement officers who know how to work with students and have that training to make sure students are protected. So the sheriff, we know that he's facing staffing challenges just like so many other businesses and just like us. But he and I had a discussion actually yesterday as we're recording. They've got a plan to make sure those schools are covered with an SRO. So I thank them for that. And every time there's a tragedy in the news, folks talk about it. I want people to know that you can't ever be 100% but it is on our mind every single day to protect student safety. And a key component is people, and it's that sheriff's department. So I want to mention something in addition.
Okay.
We have learned from law enforcement that they will be more visible on our campuses this year than in the past. That even includes state troopers dropping in. They will be there at unpredictable times to make sure that there is an increased presence in areas where children gather. So I want to thank the state for that. I want to thank our local law enforcement for that. And that actually, the commitment to public safety is not just at the county level, not just at the state level, but I want to thank our local law enforcement agencies as well. We work well with all them.
So families could very well see a highway patrol car or a sheriff's deputy vehicle, more than one, parked in a school parking lot.
That's right.
Okay.
You might have a state trooper come in and just do a run through, do a check. We know those kinds of things are going to happen because we're all in this together in protecting our children.
Okay, and I want to add one more thing as we talk about volunteers and folks coming in and out of the building. You can't just walk into a school building. Explain that process and why we have that in place.
Obvious item you will see in a school, the most obvious safety item, is the structure for entering a school building. We have a video system at each entrance where someone at a remote location, at a different, not right in front where you can necessarily see the door, have a camera system for you to buzz in. We also have security cameras scattered throughout, inside and outside the building as well. So you hit a buzzer, they get a look at you, they'll check your ID.
You need a photo ID.
Check your ID, compare your face to the photo ID.
And they're going to say, why are you here?
In essence, why are you here? Well, you have to come on business. There has to be a purpose for that. And so that's the most obvious security arrangement you will have. The security of the buildings, the exterior doors are a priority of ours. We've talked to our folks about that. We continue to work to improve that. There are some doors in our building that just don't even have an outside handle because there's no reason for someone to access the door from the outside. We continue to work on those with that point of emphasis that the buildings themselves will be secure.
I want to add, because I'm trying to repeat this at every opportunity that I have, Michael Fletcher, who oversees our safety and security for Williamson County Schools, says, you cannot have convenience and safety. And so when people get frustrated that they have to show a badge to even get in to drop off something for their child, please remember, you cannot have convenience and safety. And we are about safety for our students and our staff.
Every bit of safety reduces convenience a little bit, but we've concluded it's worth it. You think about other services. Doctors make sure that they wear masks when they're operating, that they wash their hands. There are some basic things that all service providers do. To us, this is basic. If you don't have business in a school, you shouldn't be there. But if you do have business at a school, we want you there.
We want you there, that's right.
And so it's going to take a little bit more planning. It's going to take a little bit of safety protocols. When I go to the airport, I actually appreciate, sometimes can be frustrating,
That's
but
right.
I appreciate standing in line to make sure. I want to be safe.
You want to be safe on your flight.
I want to be safe.
That's right.
And so it is that balance that we work through, but student safety has to be our baseline priority.
Very good. Let's talk about school lunch. Things have changed yet again. So the no-cost meals, the USDA has removed that. So we will be charging for meals again. James Rometti, who oversees food service operations in this district, is working to keep those prices where they were pre-pandemic. And so breakfast for all grades is $2.75. Lunch is $3.75. He says, if you've ever gone through a cafeteria line, you have to. You, every student has their PIN, and it's like, I don't know, if you're using your debit card and you have to punch in a PIN, to buy something. When you go through the line, you punch in a PIN, and every student has a PIN number, and he says, everybody have patience because we're going to have to reteach because we haven't used PINs. in a couple of years, and some students have never used the PIN number, right? So
Well,
that's going to be a change.
During President Trump's administration, the USDA, as part of the federal initiative, eliminated charging for all meals. In other words, the USDA reimbursed for every meal. That continued when President Biden took office, but this year they have made a decision that they're going back to where we were pre-pandemic. So we do have that charge. Now, there's so many interesting aspects to this for me. The number of students who chose a student lunch the last couple of years has really skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. And so we're very curious, our food service department is very curious, how is that going to continue? We haven't raised prices, knowing that food prices have gone up, because we want to make sure that we do the best we can for our families with the assets that we have, and we believe we can, at least in the short term, afford delaying our having to increase the prices. But we're curious, how many people will choose to stick to the school lunch, knowing that the old charge is there? And so we'll be balancing that out, we believe, over the first couple of months to see folks' habits. I believe a lot of folks' habits have changed. They found out their children like the school lunch. We actually crank up the quality a little bit. Well, I said above kind of the norm, because we want to make sure we take good care of our families and our children, and make sure that the food is something that they want. So we'll be balancing that out.
We do offer a la carte as well. And
so a la carte, ice cream's popular, yeah. Chips, those kinds of things. We have a lot of USDA health rules that we must follow. So we're excited about where we're going with our food service department. Because of the federal reimbursements, the school systems like us that tend to have relatively small free and reduced numbers, we actually have to generate our own income in a different way from those. So we actually have, from an income perspective, came out a little bit ahead during those COVID years, and we anticipate that we'll be flattening that out by making sure we don't overcharge our families, especially this first year. Now, Carol, I mentioned free and reduced lunch.
Yes, talk about that.
I want to emphasize that we encourage anyone who believes they might qualify, fill out the form. It's an electronic form. You can, I think you can do it on paper as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so if you're at all interested, get on our website, do a little word search for free and reduced, go to our food service website, call our food service department, their phone number's on our website.
I would also add, even if you aren't necessarily interested, if you would fill it out to see if you possibly qualify for a free or a reduced meals, because we want to provide that if you can qualify.
Check it out, because everyone could use a little bit of help with expenses. We know cost of everything's going up, so let us help in those spots. We hear folks occasionally say, "Oh, there's a stigma to that." Y'all,
you won't know.
Yeah,
you don't know.
Not in our experience, there's not.
The student still has a PIN that you go through the line, you type in your PIN, nobody knows anything, right?
That's
because
right.
Everything now is
right.
online. You do your lunch balance it's all in a...
And Carol, frankly, I believe with the transition and work issues with COVID, that some of that, even in our community, has gone by the wayside. That people recognize, hey, you go through fluctuations in your work, disabling conditions, those kinds of things. We want to help, and it helps our food service department as well for budgeting purposes,
That's
so that
true.
we can serve everyone just a little bit better.
They've also said, though, that the food supply issues continue. So the menu may say one thing, but based on what gets delivered, they may have to make some adjustments. So once again, please be patient with our cafeteria managers and workers. And if you want to work in the cafeteria, it's a wonderful job where you get to see kids come through the line, and it's just fun. You get to interact with the students and also make sure they have a healthy meal. So apply online. We still have openings there as well. We need to do a plug for the folks who have not completed their back to school forms. If you have not done that yet, or even if you think you might be questioning whether or not you've done that. Go into your Skywater account and see if you've completed those forms. You will be getting a communication from the district if you have not completed your forms.
If you're not sure, give your school office a call just as a quick double check. Your children might have gotten a schedule for next year, and if you have, you still need to fill out we have the acceptable use agreement, those kinds of forms that are signed on an annual basis. That's part of what we're talking about.
And I'm just going to put this out there, don't trust that schedule yet, because they continue to make adjustments, especially the high school level. There's a lot of movement around as they're navigating through scheduling. And those bigger high schools, I can't even imagine scheduling 1,800 students or so.
1,800 students. At 7 grade, it's at 7 class periods with all the teachers to make sure you meet all those the graduation requirements. It's a lot of work. It actually starts in January for the next year, because it's a lot of counseling detail that folks talk about.
Our assistant principals who oversee that, wow. It's impressive, the work that they do. Let's talk about a little bit of communications, and I want to put a plug in for our folks. On Thursday, which is tomorrow, as we are recording this, our InFocus email newsletter will come out. And InFocus is the email newsletter that we push out every Tuesday to share district-wide information and some school information as well. Our back-to-school issue is coming out tomorrow, and or I guess this program will be included in it as well. But sign up for InFocus if you have not done so. Please sign up, and it's got a lot of great information in there, and we want you to be informed so you can be engaged. Also, the mobile app. It is a popular tool.
I use it.
And because you have ball games to go to or fine arts events to attend and things. So if you would, whether you have children in our district or not, we still want you to go to Friday night football games, basketball games in the winter. We want you to come to our choral presentations, our theater productions are second to none, and you can find out about those things in our app. So when you go to the App Store, just look for WCS EDU or Williams County Schools Tennessee, and download that. You can select the schools that you want to follow, and come see us.
And Carol, you said Williamson County Schools Tennessee because there is a Williamson County, Texas.
There is.
Every once in a while we have an email from someone asking a question about a school in Texas.
That's right, and we don't know how to answer that other than that's not us. Anyway, all right, as we wrap this up, final words for you?
Carol, I want to focus on what I mentioned we're focusing our administrators on, celebrating teachers and our staff. We didn't start with that. We started with some more practical aspects of some of our goals for this year, but the work our teachers do is incredible. I mentioned earlier, it's not easy to grow students the way we grow them. It takes the proverbial village, and the leaders of that village are our teachers in the classroom, working with your children, spending time professionally getting together and growing. We've heard talk about implications that we heard the stories in the media, at least we have over the course of the summer, and we're focused on that because we're educators, on just the implications from a couple of people that the education colleges are dumb and that kind of thing. Guys, it is not true. Let me tell you about my experience. My experience is that some of our highest performing students end up back in the classroom as teachers. Those students who are knocking it out go back to college and come back and serve their children. I've had a broad professional experience in my 30 plus years of professional life. Some of the smartest people I know are our teachers. But anybody who runs a business knows it's not just about intelligence. It's about an emotional commitment. It's about planning. It's about professional development. It's about growing in your profession, developing the techniques that work in your profession, and working with others. Our teachers do all that. There's a reason why we're number one, and it's because of our teachers. We are making it a focus to celebrate our teachers and our staff. I ask those of you who are watching to do the same. Thank a teacher. Thank a bus driver. Give them, hey, if you can give them a little gift card, a little gift, do it. Do what you can to celebrate them. We all know the stereotype about pay. There's truth to that stereotype. The work that is done by the folks in our schools is done out of love. And I want you as parents to know that, and we're going to continue to celebrate that this year.
I think it's going to be a great year.
I do too.
I'm really excited. And we'll do this every month once the school board starts meeting, well, in August. So I guess I think it's August 16th when we will record this next program and push that out through InFocus. So we hope you guys have a great year. We hope that you get involved with your child's school or with your community school. And we hope to see you around Williamson County Schools.